We're back for our second set of SPL to start off week number 3 of phase number 1. All of us hosts have been doing that today. Week 3, day 1, set 2 of season 9 of the SPL. And, oh, I got the wrong side. Solar Scarabs up against the Leviathans. Should be a good set here. Some interesting things, I think, to take away already from set number 1 today here, and makes me look forward to the rest of this weekend. My name's Dolson. Trelly's with me for our second set of the day. And Trelly, you look at our first set, and it's the Olympus Bolts. And I think if I look towards them, it's that the SPL is so competitive this year. And the Bolts, a team that are off to a very hot start and one to watch moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to say that we can say that the Scarabs and the Leviathans both have something to prove. And when you can say that the returning world champs have to prove that they can still hang at this level is insane, because they've been playing well, but they just got tooled by the Bolts. They lost to the Oni Warriors. So they really do have to prove that they can hang in this meta. It's a bit of a learning curve. They're trying to get used to that sort of thing. But both of these teams really would appreciate a win here.
Yeah, implications for both teams, not as far as the entire year goes, but how confident we are in them moving forward, as the Leviathans and the Scarabs are our second and final SPL match of the day. Valk's back in action against the Dragons to start the day tomorrow. And how about the matchup to end the day tomorrow? Tartarus Titans versus what could be the best team in the SPL right now, the Camelot Kings. Excited for the Valks and the Dragons. Of course, the brothers in the mid lane matching up against one another. And so, of course, some bragging rights on the line there. But when we talk about implications, we talk about how the standings can move around, how teams over the first couple of weeks have all lost matchups, which I find exciting, because every so often you'll have the start to a year, the start to a phase. A team will just run out to a hot start, and everyone will not lose to anyone. The fact that every team has dropped some sets here at this point, I think makes for a very, very competitive year. I mean, look, 5 of the teams right now are, 2-2 or worse? So 3 teams stand alone with only 1 loss. I think that makes for a really exciting year. A couple teams towards the bottom of the standings, and I can't believe I'm saying that about the defending world champions, towards the bottom of the standings, seed number 6 as of right now, are these Atlantis Leviathans. And I think, Trey, you look at it in a good way here, where the meta hasn't entirely shifted from the end of Season 8, but there are some differences, and it looks like the Leviathans, a team just trying to catch back up with their own play style, get some consistency reestablished, because we have seen some of the best of the Atlantis Leviathans, and we've also seen the Leviathans drop some sets that otherwise you might expect them to win. And so it's super interesting watching this roster, such a talented team, a team that had just won Worlds a few months ago, kind of go through the ebbs and flows, the goods and the bads of early Season 9.
Yeah, we did talk to Rong Yu in an interview a bit ago, and he was saying that they were struggling to find some consistency in the meta. They're just trying to figure out where they stand, what comps work for them, that sort of thing. So I think we will see a little bit more of the, and I know it's weird to say this word for the returning world champs, but a bit of a learning curve right now. They're just trying to get used to the meta and flesh out what picks work for them, and it's going to take a bit, but they still have that talent on their team.
And look, the Leviathans are the only team in the league who have beaten the Kings right now. The Kings, again, who might look like the best team in the league, the Kings lost to the Leviathans in the first set of the year for both of these two teams. But then the Leviathans lose to the Oni Warriors, so who knows what happens there. And then the Leviathans beat down the Tartarus Titans quickly in a 2-0, and then get absolutely smashed by the Olympus Bolts in a 2-0. And so we have seen every player on this Leviathans team step up individually, depending on the set, and also crumble as a team, depending on the set. I look at Zapman and Shinto, and they are kind of the north star of how this team is performing, because in the 2-0 set against the Titans, Trelly, Shinto and Zapman go off. I mean, it's an absurd performance from both of the carries. And then literally the next day, crumble, fall by the wayside. I mean, it's such a unique team and a unique situation. Obviously, you're going to have confidence in these guys to get things back on the right track and get things moving forward. Speaking of getting onto the right track, that's what the Solar Scarabs need to do now, in a very similar spot to the Atlantis Leviathans. 1 and 2 in the standings, have played 1 less set than the Atlantis Leviathans have. Of course, come into this year with a new mid laner. You've got Scary D instead of SOT, and so there are some changes over on that side of the map for sure, Trelly, because simply play style-wise, Scary D and SOT play a very different style of game. So a lot for the Solar Scarabs to get used to.
Yeah, they do have to start figuring out how they want to play through that solo lane, because obviously Scream does like to go over there. He likes to find some aggression, but if he can't get going over there, you know, do you just not look at the solo lane anymore? Do you not want to help your solo laner get some farms so you can get ahead that way? I will say I think Baronic has stepped up in a big way in that mid lane. He's been able to find a lot of the kills on this team has been going the way of Stewart and Baronic. So when they do get on, when they are hot, it looks good. I mean, they have these high points, as you mentioned, the high points and the low points. The low points, they really just don't get started. It really just takes a little bit of engage. They really need inbound to step up and say, hey, this is the way we're going to play this, because at the beginning of the season, when that small play tournament, Scream was stepping up in a big way, but it seems like he hasn't been able to get the ball rolling since then.
Yeah, I think that's been important and will be important for the Solar Scarabs, is diversifying their win conditions, because for a while last year it felt like Scream getting off to a good start was it for this team. And then, of course, there are some outliers where one carry or another or solo lane, whatever it might be, would step up. But it felt like if you really had to identify the strengths of the Scarabs last year, it was all Scream all day. And I still think there's some truth to that. But I like that you shout out Baronic, who I think has grown as a player a lot in my eyes, has put together some really nice games so far this year. Even against the Camelot Kings, you go 5-1-11 on AMC, who's one of the most hit-or-miss picks in the mid lane right now. And so I think there's still some excitement here for the Solar Scarabs team. And it makes the conversation around standings and who can beat who so unique for Season 9 in the SPL, because I think the Scarabs on a good day, they can beat anyone in the SPL. Whether or not they have a good day, up to the Solar Scarabs themselves. Obviously, we don't have any pregame interviews with the players live right now, because we talked to them a little bit ago going into this matchup. Let's hear what they had to say.
Our performances in week 2 were pretty inconsistent. I think, you know, the league being so close, I think the first part of the year is going to be like this. Everyone's trying out new things. Teams are coming back from vacation, you know. So I think, yeah, we're just inconsistent, and, you know, it's a long year. We're going to just keep working to improve every week. You got to give a lot of props to the Bolts draft. I think they outdrafted us both games. It felt very hard to team fight into what they had, and I think they did really well counterpicking some of our picks. And so I think draft-wise, and of course we died a few times, so, you know, draft and just playing a little bit cleaner would help us out a lot. The Scarabs seem like they're very, very hot and cold. Like when they get off to a good start, they seem unbeatable, but, you know, the other way around, they seem like they can't get a win either if they start off slow. So I think a very hot or cold team. So hopefully, you know, they don't start off hot against us. The biggest stat in the Scarabs is definitely Scream. I mean, he's definitely their kind of like intellectual player. He comes up with all these ideas, albeit I don't really agree with a lot of them from what I've heard when I watch the stream and things like that, but yeah, he's definitely the one to look out for. I think when we go against the Scarabs, it should be a 2-0 for us, but it should be a good match either way.
That man is always going to pay all due respect to the opposing team. And I do think Trelly, he's spot on there. That man always good in interviews, and I think he's correct, where he sort of highlights what we're talking about with the Scarabs, where hot and cold team, but you got to be careful. On their good days, they can beat anyone.
Yeah, when Scream does come out swinging, I think that is what he was alluding to there. When he comes out swinging, when he gets that early lead and puts his team ahead, it's very difficult to fight this roster when they get that lead. But the Leviathans, not really a roster that's afraid of fighting from behind. They're able to do that. They're able to say, you know, we'll just stay back a little bit and we'll find some sort of aggression in the later stages of the game. So I like to see that Zap is putting a little bit of respect on that, saying, you know, they will get out to a little bit of an early start.
Trelly, as we get into picks and bans for Game 1, I'm very curious as to where the priority will lie for both teams, because at this point, if you're going against the Leviathans, I don't know who you can ban out. I mean, Yamoja for Rongyu, that's a pretty obvious first ban, because teams last week were giving this pick to Rongyu, and it just felt like a mistake consistently. Do you think if you're the Leviathans, already Erlang Shen kind of answers this question, do you just put emphasis on Scream's early game jungle picks and take those away? And do you think that really limits how the Scarabs can operate early in these games?
You know, if you asked me at the beginning of the season, I would have said yes, just target ban Scream. You don't want him to get off to an early lead, that sort of thing. But I feel like Scream has sort of fallen by the wayside, not so much as not being able to carry, but I was going to say Baronic has been really picking up the slack here. This AMC mid has been very strong for them. I think Scream has been saying, hey, I don't have to hard carry for us to win these games or at least find some pressure. I can be a setup jungler and find that my teammates get the last hits, they get that gold, and they're able to carry as well. So I don't think you can just target ban out Scream anymore. I don't think this Solar Scarabs roster is really, as Mifflin says, I don't think 80% of the Scarabs is on Scream anymore. I think they really are starting to figure out where their strengths lie and where they can play elsewhere. So you're going to have to ban out the two warrior jungles, right? The Gilg and the Erlang. That's a smart way to go, but I think taking some shots at Baronic is definitely a way to go as well.
Yeah, Baronic, in the last 2 games that we've seen AMC for Baronic and these Scarabs has gone a combined 10, 2, and 19. So you're absolutely right. It's been a strong look for the Solar Scarabs, the AMC has been, in the last couple of sets where we've seen that. And Shinto with the ADC's mid is a interesting conversation because you of course want him on the Tiamats. Maybe hell every once in a while the more standard mages, Merlin of course when the mood strikes right. AMC has also been important for Shinto, but it's been a little bit more difficult to predict what type of performance Shinto's going to have. 3-0-6 in one of his 2 AMC games recently, and then 3-6-6 up against the Olympus Bolts. So I don't think taking away the AMC from Shinto is as devastating, which is obviously hyperbolic, as it is taking it away from Baronic. The final ban will be the Kleedna, whether that's jungle or solo lane ban. Who cares? Kleedna's a good pick. Let's take it away. Solar Scarabs, they get first pick, and they will hand Stu the Medusa.
Usually Medusa is the answer back. Now the Zeus is open. It has been banned away quite a lot, but the question is, do they really think it's that safe of a pick? Are they able to punish it? I don't know. The Leviathans, they banned the Kleena over, which I think was a smart call, because right now, Kleena just brings so much pressure, even in the jungle or the solo, whichever role she wants to play, so that's a smart bet. But we have seen a lot more Cthulhu recently, and that is going to be the answer back. So recognizing, hey, maybe Zeus could be on the table. Daji, great answer to it. We'll just grab that instead.
Wow, Daji has been picked 5 times and won 4 out of those 5 games. Only 1 loss out of 5 for Daji right now, Trelly. What level of concern, though? Because Daji, of course, beads burner, but wants beads to be burnt when initiating with that powwow. What level of concern maybe not being the right word, do you have with Daji being picked this early? Do you think it's easy for the Scarabs to prioritize picks based around this jungle pick for Panatom because the Daji was picked so early?
Yeah, we usually see this Daji banned away when these sort of double hunter comps or like the Cernanos or the AMC, anything like that is going to be picked. But when you pick the Daji so early, you really do let these team comps draft around it. You say, hey, we don't want those un-CC immune characters. We want the cleanses, that thing. But if you're able to shut it down, if you're able to stop the Palo, Daji still has a fair bit of damage in her own right. So I think if you're the Scarab, seeing the Daji's been picked so early, you are going to look more trying to get a cleanse online, like the Chiron, for example.
Yep. Yeah, Chiron will work wonders here for the Solar Scarabs. Something likely that we'll see out of the mid lane. And yet again, it feels like every game I'm surprised by how much damage the full ability-based build for Chiron can do. It feels like just Centaurus and then the damage follow-up after that just melts backlines. And it's unavoidable as long as the positioning is proper. I mean, it's such long-range confirmable damage for Baronic out of mid that, cleanse is just a little icing on the cake for what else Chiron can bring to the table. Zeus for Shinto. Looks like the look for the Leviathans mid lane here in game number 1. So a semi-punishable pick depending on where the jungle goes for Scream.
Yeah, I really like what the Leviathans did with this draft. I was kind of question marking, the Zeus was open. How come they didn't first pick it? But they did. Arguably better play. They got the Cthulhu and the Daji, something you don't want to pick the Zeus into, so it would still be open for them on this 3rd pick slot, because once you grab that Daji, what are you going to do as the Scarab, saying, we can play around it, or just go, hey, maybe we'll go double Hunter with an RDO. We have this amazing amount of shred in our own right, but we're going to give some of that space control away with the Lightning Storm, and then the Leviathans are able to pick it up for themselves. So now they got themselves a nice little start here. They are going to ban away the E set, which is usually a Scream jungle pickup when you have the double Hunter, so that is going to be 2 shots at Scream with the Nemesis as well. Both jungles going to be taken away. On the flip side, the Scarabs get rid of the Khepri, trying to get rid of some of that safety that this Zeus will have, because the number one problem with Zeus, he's not very safe. If you can keep him alive in the fight, you're probably going to win. If he's going to die, you could probably lose.
Yep, and I'm glad you point out Scream for ESET, because it feels like depending on the team, it's either for sure a jungle pick or for sure a support pick, and it does feel like a jungle pick for Scream, but on other teams, might be something you'd see go more towards support. Inbound, I'm sure, can play a nice E-set, but I do think on this team, Scream plays that one a little bit more often. Nox is the hover here, and this is something we started to see a little bit more of, Trelly, where E-set was kind of the first to do it when you look at CC, Lockdown, sort of annoying support style picks. Nox, or E-set rather, was one of the first to do it, but Nox has been seeing a rise in play, won't be picked in just yet. Instead, it'll be the Uller for Zapman. That is a strong pick. Talk about a storied duo. Zapman plus Uller carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, the Zuler does have some lane winning potential into a Medusa. That is definitely saying something. The Fafnir is still open, though. You already have this double ADC comp. I imagine because Scream's favorite mage jungle is taken away, you're going to want a second Guardian to try to get some of that magical damage. So if you do want to go double Guardian, double Hunter, that Fafnir for the course, the group-wide. Oh, it looks like the Ymir is going to be hovered instead, though. So still that second Guardian, but not putting so much stock in the attack speed buffer objectives, more so in the peel route or engage route. Trying to go in there with a blink freeze is going to be a solid engage.
Wow, so this is the first time that we've seen Ymir in the SPL at all in Season 9. One ban, it looks like, 3% ban rate, a single time banned. But this will be the first look at Ymir in Season 9 of the SPL, and it's Inbound playing it. Ymir giveth and Ymir taketh away. I think there's every likelihood, Trelly, that Inbound starts off affecting 3 kills like a few minutes into this game. And there's a similar likelihood of this Ymir being 0-3 in the same amount of time. Who knows with the way that this lane is built. Medusa plus Ymir could find some pressure. And Scream ends up getting Bastet. And I mentioned Zapman and Uller being a storied combination. Scream on Bastet, maybe similar impact.
Yeah, Scream, one of the guys in the league that have been playing at Bastet even before the reworks, trying to try
it's
out.
looked different.
Yeah,
right?
Throughout the years, always playing this Bastet here, but. I'm looking at the lane because obviously Ymir and Medusa shouldn't be getting out-pressured by anything, but Fafnir and Uller, that's a lot of CC, that's a lot of setup and the level 2 fight, so I think both of these lanes have the potential to brawl, but as you mentioned, this Ymir pick, it could be very solid because I think you wall off the Zeus very well and the Cthulhu very well. You can really cut them out of position pretty easily, but on the flip side, if Zeus just like drops Lightning Storm and gets ahead, it's going to make Inbound's life very miserable. I mean, you're going to eat the full brunt of that Lightning Storm pretty much every time. Not very mobile on this pick. So if the Solar Scarabs can get ahead, as Zapman alluded to in that interview, if Scream comes out swinging, if they can get a lead, I think this draft is very solid. You want to get these double ADCs late game to try to get that just objective shred. But the Leviathans, they're going to run away with this early if they can just get a little bit of lead.
Yeah, I'm curious. Talk to me about what your expectations are then out of the jungle. Between a Bastet, between a Daji, Scream and Panatom, respectively. Do you imagine a similar power curve between those two, similar points in the game where both want to start getting active, or do you need a little bit more wind-up time in your mind on one or the other?
For me, I'm looking at the Bastet who wants to kill a Zeus, right? The Zeus is in mid lane, very immobile, can't move around too much, and you're dealing with a Chiron who can just outrange the heck out of the Zeus. So I imagine Scream's going to want to punish the Zeus, but on the flip side, I mean, Panatom doesn't want to go for the Chiron. He has the cleanse. He can avoid a lot of the power out, just trying to stay away. So I don't think Panatom's going to want to get too active in that mid lane right now. They're probably going to be fighting on opposite sides of the map, I would imagine, because you have to try to shut down Shinto. Letting that Zeus get online, that's going to be GG.
Yeah, and I look towards the soul lane as far as later on into this game. Who's going to deal with Yarkora on this Cthulhu? Who is going to shut down Scary D on this RDO? Because there are immense amounts of damage drafted for both of these teams here, Trelly.
Right.
But when you look at like late game builds, two of the more difficult solo laners to kill, Cthulhu's been near the top of that tier list for a couple weeks now. RDO has been as well. Are you more confident in tank shred on one side or the other?
Yeah, I mean, you have to give the tank shred opportunity to the double ADCs, right? I mean, Medusa, because the great thing about this double Hunter comp is that one of them can go just Titan's Bane and full ability damage with the Chiron and the Heartseekers, things like that. Whereas the Medusa can go for some Chin Size, just some Silver Branch, and you can go for double amounts of shred. It's different sort of ability damage. So I think when you have two ADCs, you have to give the late game team fight to that comp no matter what. But there's still that question mark. Can you shut down Zeus? Is Zeus going to die in these team fights, or is he going to live? If he lives, it's a completely different 5v5.
And talk about how expectations have been different here in Season 9. A 6th versus 7th matchup out of 8 teams here in Season 9 of the SPL. The Atlantis Leviathans versus the Solar Scarabs, and how this can change the standings moving forward. So important. Again, the Scarabs at 1-2 going into this 2-2. For the Atlantis Leviathans. Things really get crazy here, Trelly. If the Solar Scarabs end up winning this, they go to 2-2. The Leviathans go down to 2 and 3. I mean, you're really starting a traffic jam there in the middle. I do think game 1 in this set, though, very important in setting the tone. I'll always think game 2 is the most important. You're never going to sway me on that. But I do think between these two teams specifically, we're going to get a really good feel on which version of the two teams we got today in game number 1.
Yeah, for me, I think if the Scarabs win this game 1, that's not going to mean too much. But if the Leviathans win game 1, I think they'll be able to run away with it.
Atlantis Leviathans versus Solar Scarabs, our second and final set of the day, kicking off right now.
And what an important game 1 for both of these two teams out here. And something that Charlie was kind of talking about, and really what the desk was going on about here, Mifflin, was when we get to the late game against these comps, because these are some dangerous compositions going to the late game. I mean, you've got double ADC on the Solar Scarabs and this nigh unkillable Cthulhu on the opposite side here for the Leviathans. And Mifflin, when we kind of look at these two teams here, the Leviathans are a team that always want to go towards the late game.
Yeah, I think so. If they're allowed to play till that point, I'm just not sure how this Zeus is going to be dealt with. I'm not sure what the answer to this Cthulhu is going to be. Because the dive potential of the Solar Scarabs, although decently strong between Artio and Ymir, is a little bit mitigated by the fact that it's going to be bolt physical damage. The only one closing gap into that back line that's dealing that physical damage from the Solar Scarabs is going to be Scream. Jump in, claw. Can you stick in if a lightning storm's dropped on your feet? Can you stay close if Yarkor's descended into madness? I'm not sure about their capability to do that. So instead, maybe look towards the early game for the Solar Scarabs. Maybe look towards early rotations from Scream to really get them off on the right foot.
And he's on a good god to get some early rotations out here. I mean, the Bastet is known for just how well she can perform in the early game, especially once that level 5 hits. You get that pseudo-ranged Ragnarok that you can pick somebody out and displace them, make sure that you pull off a set of beads. A couple of targets that you can pull, things like the Yarkor, if you know, here on this Cthulhu, if he doesn't have ult. Same thing can be said over to Wrong, beads onto him, or just use it for that beads burn. That way somebody like Inbound can maybe try and walk up and really catch Shinto out of position.
Maybe. And Inbound has been a playmaker on the Ymir in the past. He was one of the first players to bring Ymir back to the SPL, I believe, back in Season 7 or 8, was it? Where he was really piloting this god consistently. Either way, it's big walls, it's big plays in the early for him, but Dave brings it up properly on the desk that Ymir and Inbound, I suppose, together, a god and player combo that has high highs and at times low lows, maybe could be expanded on or pushed further by this god selection. I'm keeping my eyes on him.
Yeah, I think dual lane is where we're going to maybe be putting a lot of focus for both of these two teams. I mean, Wrong Zapman as a combo. You know, we're looking at the 3-time with Zapman, and then Wrong his partner in crime over here in the dual lane. Then Inbound Stewart for how much they've been able to grow together as a team in just the, we're almost actually at a full year that these guys have been playing together over in that dual line ever since Stewart joined on to the Solar Scarabs roster here. So I think Inbound is probably one of the bigger topics that we'll be discussing throughout this game on this Ymir, whether it be the die 5 times in the first 10 minutes of play kind of Ymir that we've seen in the past, or maybe set up for 5 kills in the first 10 minutes.
Well, it does seem to me, indicated by Relic selection, that Inbound will be trying to get active shortly, and even on positioning on map. Look at him hovering near this red buff. I wonder if Shinto's spotted him out. They're moving it aggressive.
Let's move towards the blue buff on the opposite side here, at least by Scary. That won't go their way. Inbound now stuck between Wrong and Shinto, and the detonate. Not enough, so it needs one more auto. It'll be Wrong on the board first for the Atlantis Leviathan, striking first blood.
Yeah, Wrong just takes the last hit. Maybe Shinto not super happy about it, but at the end of the day, first blood for the Atlantis Leviathans, one that you're certainly happy about. And there it is, just rearing its head. The issue, the concern that we had for this Ymir, you want to get active. He is one of the strongest early game guardians. Frostbite is so powerful a tool. The passive of Ymir give you additional auto attack damage when you apply any one of your abilities, barring that wall. Just so potent at this portion of the game. It's really tantalizing. You really want to leverage that. But walking up to a Zeus at level 3, maybe not the most good place to land that aggression, I suppose.
Yeah, probably not too ideal here. Now it's level 3 on
That's
Inbound versus level 5 on Panatom. So that Powwow is available to the jungler, and no CC immunity on the side of Inbound here for a couple of more levels. Ultimate by Scream gets the beads on Shinto. Centaurus needs one more hit, but Baronic can't find the damage out there. He does have the Master Shot to at least trade out and get one, but now with the Powwow, 2 pulled in there. No, nobody pulled in. A nice cleanse by Baronic will get the team out.
Wrong Yu steps up, but just to make sure the Solar Scarabs aren't able to keep walking into that tower, and a clean pick for the Scarabs, one that they desperately needed. Shutting down Shinto was one of the win conditions that Trelly had established for the Solar Scarabs during that desk phase, and I gotta agree, if you allow this Zeus to just free farm for the entire game, you're gonna be in for some trouble. Now, 1 level lead for Baronic, and a very aggressive mid 3v3 combo from the Solar Scarabs might make it a little bit more difficult for Shinto to get all that farm.
I mean, we've seen answers to the Zeus in the past via way of Thoth being able to outrange him. I believe we've also even seen Chiron come out of Venenu in the past to try and deal with this Zeus.
The
You just
Viron,
need
yeah.
The Viron. Now, that's right. It was coined as the Viron. We need to put the respect on it. That was direct words from him and his team out there. But Solar Scarabs at least able to bring this back. The gold evened up after that first blood there. Experience just right around that same point. Dead even game so far here, 4.5 minutes in. And considering that first blood didn't end up going over to Wrong Yu, not going to be a massive lead that's going to come from a whole lot of that out there. I mean, sure, you got Gauntlet of Thebes on a little bit earlier. That's nice, but Inbound's already got his item right behind.
Yeah, Sovereignty going to be a little bit more active throughout the early portions of this game. You're getting that defense up front rather than having to stack up the Gauntlet of Thebes, so it could be that we see Inbound continually try and get involved. Wouldn't be surprised with this style build if he is going to play that aggressor. If he falls behind in experience, it's just about whether or not he can put his team ahead.
Scary D had already dashed aggressively in, but the CC coming out of this RDO and from Scream on that Bastet with the root will be enough to make sure that Scary D does make it out of that 2v2 engagement. The offering camp will go over to the side of Leviathans, and Totoku should follow right behind. Inbound still playing very aggressive, very upfront on this Ymir. But that's just the nature of really how this Solar Scarabs teams plays. And whenever you give Inbound this very aggressive god, I think back to days like the Hercules and the Circuit, he was always playing in the enemy jungle.
He was, and well, that was back when his KD wasn't so good back then either.
All right,
so
well.
maybe this new, more veteran to Inbound who's willing to play slightly more cautious or choose his spots a little bit more often, or less often, I should say, has been suiting the Solar Scarabs very well. That said, surprised these supports have been allowing so much farm to just go by the wayside. They're allowing their mid laners and their junglers to solo up a lot of these camps, and Inbound actually is going to tick over towards level 6 first, despite falling down for First Blood, and despite that First Blood actually going over towards Wrong Yu. That said, that's not new for the Leviathans. Wrong Yu sitting in the jungle and allowing farm to go to his carries is certainly well within the play style of this World Championship squad. Shinto able to close back up that level gap because he isn't splitting nearly as much.
We do see level 8 now on Shinto, level 8 for Baronic. He was there for a little while longer, and Scream actually ended up picking up that Indra Scepter, which tells me that Scream is wanting to get very aggressive in this early game. We already saw the one gank onto Shinto, got the beads, but it's been quite a long time since we've seen any more aggression thrown towards this Zeus. So long, in fact, that Shinto's been able to get his beads back up now. Could be Zapman in danger, a turnaround Petrify, and a leap out of Zapman's not going to get him very far. The ultimate, maybe a little unnecessary there out of Scream, not realizing his damage would be enough to get that kill. The Solar Scarabs now with their second on the board.
Yeah, Bobby playing very far forward here. 3-man stack from the Leviathans of the red buff will confirm it for themselves. But in trading out Zapman, I think that's a great trade for the Solar Scarabs. Bobby essentially, just by standing near that red buff, stops the counter rotation from the Leviathans. Had they been allowed to clear it out without concerning themselves with that steal potential, would have likely been able to rotate over and maybe even potentially punish Scream for playing inside the tier 2 tower at the 7-minute mark, but unable to do so thanks to that goaltending from the support of the Solar Scarabs. And now we're starting to see some slight separation. Not a whole lot just yet. I think it's going to come down to Gold Fury or Pyromancer to really start pushing one of these teams in the lead.
Yeah, small difference in build in the solo lane being what item they went to with that first tier of the Druid Stone there. It will be a Stone of Binding on the side of Scary D. Meanwhile, Void Stone on the opposite end here for Yarkor. Though maybe just the nature of the two gods. RDO a lot more potent at applying that CC than a Cthulhu is, at least in the early stages of these fights. For now, it'll just be pretty much even stayed over into the dual lane. Scary D does have an extra tier 1 item up so far, but Yarkor hasn't really gone back to base in a while, sitting on 1,600 gold.
That is a lot, actually. He might be just waiting to finish up this next item. Could be a Breastplate of Valor if he's worried about CDR. I am excited to see. Voidstone in that first slot kind of indicates to me that he's trying to get aggressive. Maybe some early rotations from Yarkor, potentially towards this Gold Fury. Has got teleport for himself, so should be able to maneuver the map with relative ease. I'm keeping my eyes on the Leviathans. We set the stage earlier. It's not on the Leviathans to get aggressive early. It's not on the Leviathans to be establishing a lead at this portion of the game. It's just wait it out, get to that team fight, and play around your key pieces.
For now, just be a small fight over the Totem-a-Coup that was very handily going over towards Yarkor there. Scream still playing up in enemy territory around this red buff, and this is now, what, the third time that we've seen this Scarabs roster kind of make their way towards this red to establish some pressure, and maybe some more here on the Zapman. 40 seconds till those beads are back up. The stun is good. The ult from Scream will lock him down, and that should be the setup for Stewart to knock him down. Zapman goes out yet again, and Stewart can finally put his name up.
Man, Scream's just doing so much for his team right now. So active on the map. We have not seen that same level of presence from Panatom as of yet. I believe only one Palau so far, and was cleansed out by Baronic, so it doesn't even strip away any of those defensive relics, whereas Scream, 100% kill participation, actively on the map, and sitting on top of Zapman as well, slowing down the stacking of that Transcendence, already putting Stewart so far ahead. Second relic available to him, and playing an aggressive pick in the Medusa. Gotta think Scream can start putting his pressure a little bit elsewhere. I don't think Stewart needs help anymore. He's already playing Medusa. He's already 2 levels up. Let him handle Zap.
Yeah, maybe some pressure over towards Shinto, who's still keeping pace even despite the death earlier on, at least now here with Baronic. The Jade Emperor's Crown will be the second item here out of Shinto. We've seen a lot of the Celestial Legion helm kind of pop its way up for some of these mid laners. We might have to talk about that in a moment. Palau will only find inbound there from Panatom. Panatom at a quarter health. He'll have to walk himself away. Freeze onto Yarkor will at least slow down the pace of the fight, and that should be the end of it there. But going back to, I mean, Jade Emperor's Crown, we see it on solo laners more often. Don't typically see it on these mid lane mages.
Yeah, it's a good deal of survivability, and I suppose Shinto concerned about the dive coming his way, as Wrong Yu over the wall, horrific emblem out. This could be a fight.
Pyromancer leashed. Wrong Yu transforms in the middle of 3. Inbound will lock him down. The cat slowing him down. And Scary D on the backside of the fight should be able to run back through. Does pop his beads to continue the aggression up against Wrong Yu. So low, Scary D will find the kill on the backside of the fight. But can Scary D find a way out of this fight? It's Yarkor now. Into the Descent to Madness. Inbound will throw up the wall to hold Yarkor back, and that wall lasts just long enough to create enough distance for the Scarabs to find their way out.
Multi-man TKO, though, for the Leviathans has opened the door for the Pyromancer to fall down. Objective removed immediately. I think maybe had Yarkor used the knock-up before the Claw, could have potentially knocked Scary D out of that dash a little bit earlier and picked up a return kill. But in getting the objective, still a small win for the Leviathans in that skirmish. And it is exactly that, just a small win. The Solar Scarabs, however, have been continually pushing their gold lead and already starting to leverage some of that pressure that Stewart's been handed. Now 3 levels up over Zapman, Oracle Vision on the Gold Fury, and stacked up.
Scary D had teleported in to the top side to get ready for this Fury. Half health, it's just Wrong Yu here. You can body block this from the Fafnir. Don't let him steal with a hammer, he will not. Wrong Yu unsuccessful in grabbing that Fury away. That one goes over to the side of the Solar Scarabs. And out of curiosity, Doug, can we get a look at Inbound's build path? I'm curious how many points he's put into that wall, because it felt like it sat up there for quite some time. Yeah, doing a 3-2-3 so far. And this is always the interesting part on Ymir players. You go from one Ymir player to another, and they'll tell you probably 5 different ways that they're going to itemize, or at least level priority-wise, as far as how they'll build up.
Yeah, I think it's completely dependent on matchups. If you're able to isolate something like a Zeus, getting additional points in that wall, always going to be valuable. And, well, Shinto's playing Zeus, and that's pretty easy to lock down. Even Panatom, to a certain extent, if he doesn't have any allies nearby, will be completely locked down by the ice wall from Inbound. So getting a couple of levels in that early makes a good deal of sense, specifically around Cthulhu as well. Just being able to stop him from being able to walk into your team is massive.
Big stun out of Scary D stops Panatom in its place. That could have been a potential Palau turnaround. There were no beads up for Scary D from that last team fight that they had over around Fire. Tier 1 tower under fire now by Panatom. He'll have to go away. Scream picks him up with the ultimate and forces out that Palau this time around. Panatom does manage to pull in only Scary D, a little bit misfire on the cleanse from Baronic. But that should be enough of a distance gap, at least here, for Leviathans to make their way out.
Yeah, Panatom has not been on the mark just yet with these Palaus. Scream just able to juke those out with the old Wazdies and gets to maintain his beads yet again in another team fight. I'm not sure we've seen any threat onto this Bastet's beads as of yet, just been allowed to play as aggressive as you'd like. Speaking of, a little bit of damage in towards Shinto, but thinks twice about going into that tower. Shinto been doing a good job of trying to right the ship in mid. We'll see if Inbound, well, Zapman knows he's there. He's just taking some flowers. Maybe he can get aggressive.
Well, Inbound will walk up, but Zapman won't have any part of that fight. That's now a full obelisk online for the Solar Scarabs, and whoever decides to go overhead and pick up that scepter. Inbound goes in with the blink freeze, gets the beads out of Zapman. A dash in from Stewart. It's a big damage after, but the wall will not stop Zapman. He's got to leap to get over another one, but Scary D was around that wall. The stun is here, the Bear Claw right after. And Scary D puts a 5th one up for the Scarabs.
The timing of that teleport has got to be so frustrating for Zapman. Scary D TP's in onto the ward, and these are deep wards, by the way, from the Solar Scarabs.
Yeah.
Even on the back camps, getting aggressive.
Panatom up on the Palau, found Inbound, but Inbound's got the ult to get out of that pull. He'll throw it out as soon as Panatom lands in. But a lot of damage from Shinto on that mid lane. That's 75% of Inbound's HP. But the entirety of the Scarabs are on this left side of the map. Wrong U has to transform into the Dragon form to try and zone people out. He catches Baronic with that leap, but that wall is going to stop anybody on the Leviathans from walking forward.
Yeah, Yarkor would have loved to have chased out there. Does not want to dedicate the blink over the wall, though, so that should be a clean disengage for the Solar Scarabs. And that level of play where the Scarabs step up to the tier 2 tower, that's a low % win rate. That's not going to happen very often. But they heat check the Leviathan and say, all right, if they don't show up, we get a tier 2. If they do show up, we disengage. And even if we do get TKO, the Solar Scarabs, that is, what are the Leviathans going to do with pressure on that side of the map? Absolutely nothing. Maybe a return tier 1, but the wave's already pushed up all the way to the Leviathan side of the map. Gold Fury's already dead. Nobody's playing in mid. I love that play from the Solar Scarabs, just making sure the Leviathans are paying proper attention. And, well, if they weren't, that would have been a massive boon over to the Order side.
And the plays like that are what has net the Scarabs over 6,000 experience in the lead and 3,500 gold up over Leviathans, a position that we're not used to seeing the Leviathans. I'm sorry, 6,400? No, 8,400 now, and nearly 4K gold popping up here. Scarabs are really controlling this early game, and that's what the desk was talking about. That's what we talked about at the beginning, where Scarabs need to get active early on. They need to put some threat on the Leviathans, and so far they've been doing a good job of it.
Are you seeing this build from Scream? My man is trying to scale up Transcendence and Soul Eater purchase through the jungle. I hate stacking in the jungle personally. It feels like it just takes so long, but now survivability going to be a lot higher for Scream. Soul Eater having 10% penetration on it means that you are still getting the ability to shred through these tanks pretty easily. Once that is fully stacked, you're going to get a lot more sustain as well. And Transcendence is just a ton of power.
A lot of power there. And that's the sustain that you're talking about from the Soul Eater. Typically, we only see it over in like solo lane on these assassins, maybe something like a Sun Wukong, or Pele, I think, is the only other option really out of the jungle that we typically see that item with. So Scream going for an odd double stack here, but the Solar Scarabs up 5-1, 16.5 minutes in. Pyromancer has respawned. Last time, the fight from the Leviathans pushed the Scarabs out and away from this objective so they could take it. And it'll be the Leviathans starting it up one more time. Already half HP. It is shredding fast. They will go ahead and grab that one while Yarkor gets grabbed by the cat, frozen as soon as he stops and plays a wall up to block the path, but Yarkor is not taking a whole lot of damage in this fight.
Yeah, it was a low commitment from the Solar Scarabs, though. 50% of Yarkor's HP lost, and a great Petrify.
Stewart starts off big, finds 3 with that, but the Pow Lao from Panatom will take Scream off the map, and Baronic will not continue his chase forward. Inbound spotted out. As soon as he walks out of the jungle, Leviathans get a nice pick onto Scream to slow down the jungler.
But what can the Leviathans do with this pressure? Seems to me the Solar Scarabs are still the aggressors in this scenario. Inbound, stepping forward. Had Zatman not been there, maybe could have isolated Shinto in the jungle. Oni Fury pulled out. It's the Solar Scarabs. 20 seconds left without Scream. Can the Leviathan stop it? I think so.
Oni Fury getting low. It's going to have to be Least, and so is Scary D. He's out of there. The Leviathans grab that one right from under the Scarabs. They take it, say thanks for doing the brunt work. We'll go ahead and do the finishing job here. Leviathans have now closed up that gold lead that the Leviathans had, or the Scarabs had earlier on, when going from nearly 4K down to only 1,200 in an instant.
Yeah, and about 1,200, 1,000 gold, not very impactful at the 18-minute mark. We are starting to rapidly approach that point of the game where the Leviathans are hitting significant power spikes, where they are able to leverage that great team fight. We're already noticing now that Shinto feels really hard to dive. It is not for lack of trying that Shinto has only died once so far this game. Watch Inbound and how he positions in these team fights. He is constantly hunting for Shinto. Scream is always looking for that opportunity to sink some damage into this Zeus. But Shinto is playing so far back, so unwilling to put himself in a position where he is compromised, that the Solar Scarabs may be foregoing some other targets that could be easier to kill. Just a little bit of tunnel vision from him, and the Leviathans making great use of that space.
See Baronic going for a very high power route inside of his build, not going for the more traditional attack speed build that we see out of Stewart here at that Crusher. It's Transcendence Crusher and then Titan's Bane, which has been making a little bit of a rise here for some of these more mid-lane hunters ever since its small little buff. I believe we got a little bit of extra power. That internal cooldown dropped just a little bit there. So this time starting to make its way back into a few of these hunter builds.
It's just a consistent bit of, hey, this one ability going to deal a lot more damage now. And if you're initiating the fights with Centaurus, you're always applying that passive.
UCC, but has the leap to get out. Cat will chase for a little while. Panatom goes up. Pao Lao is here. Finds two, but quick cleanse out of Baronic will make sure that nobody gets pulled back into. Panatom goes down. Baronic finds the snipes on the back end of the fight. Wrong U stuck in the dragon form. That Lightning Storm was zoning out the Scarabs from going any further in the fight. And look how far back Scary D was willing to die to keep Yark and Shinto out.
Baronic has just got Panatom's number in these fights. Can't go for that Pal if training exercise is still up, and it has been up every single time. The Solar Scarabs, they're going to pull the Fire Giant. Can Scary D keep him at bay?
Wrong U does find the stun against Scary D, but a wall coming back, and everybody on the Scarabs has pulled off the fire and gone straight to Wrong U. Now 7-2 on it, and Yarkor up into Sense into Madness will find some damage up against Stewart, who is hot on the run. Baronic and Stewart have got to fight back into this Cthulhu, but Stewart doesn't have the health bar to do so. Meanwhile, backside of the fight, Shinto gets picked off by Scary D. Zapman can't find the last hit up against Inbound. Inbound might just make it out, but Baronic will pay for the sin. Zapman finds one, could find a second one here, if not for the ultimate from Scream.
Good Aegis from Zap, keeps him alive through the claws for just a moment. Axe buys us some time. The three-time man made his way out.
He's gonna be out for now. Good Fear will hold back Scary D. The Mire will also slow him down, but Scream is back in the fight. The jump is enough to secure the kill, and Yarkor is stuck around for just a little too long. It's a double kill for Scream and the Scarabs.
3 still strong from the Solar Scarabs, but that's a long team fight. The Leviathans have had time to respawn. Panatom has had time to rotate all the way back across the map. Does not realize that Scream is right over that wall, so instead will take the consolation prize of a blue buff invade. The Leviathans getting separated in these engagements. Shinto left alone in the back line. That does not happen often. The Solar Scarabs may have done enough to put themselves in a position where they can look yet again towards this Fire Giant. The gold, though, still largely even experience, favoring the Order side, but maybe not as much as it once had. One level here or there for the Solar Scarabs, but it's more so about the map state. It's more so about the fact that Yarkor could be dead for 10 more seconds.
See the Fire Giant started up by the Scarabs, but it's not a super heavy commit just yet. Baronic now showing up will be able to put some extra DPS into it. Panatom on the backside of the fight gets spotted out. A cat thrown his way. Fire Giant down to a quarter HP. The Scarabs are trying to find their way out. Wrong U's got to go for the transformation. Panatom on the Pao Lao will not pull in anybody. It's a good cleanse out of the Hunter, but Inbound still gets yanked back at the end of it.
Yikes.
It's a 2-3 down already as Shinto finds massive damage with the Lightning Storm. Yarkor to zone out Scary D in the back line, but Scary D won't make it very far. Yarkor shuts him down.
Give Shinto an inch and he'll take a mile. That's the first time the Solar Scarabs did not dedicate all of their attention to shutting down this Zeus, and Shinto makes a wave in his first team fight. The Leviathans now completely flip the script. This is the portion of the game that we were concerned about now. The Leviathans proving it why. Fire Giant burned down incredibly fast. Baronic nowhere in range to defend. The reigning world champions take the largest neutral objective.
I gotta wonder where Inbound was throwing these Sunders out. It's the second relic that he picked up, and it's not just a regular old, the siphoning Sunder, it's the splashing one that you can throw out, hit multiple people, but I can't tell where the dedication was in that last fight on there. Was he throwing it at Yarkor? Was he throwing it at Panatom? And then he sits in the middle of the ultimate, that Lightning Storm placement by Shinto, perfect in that fight, but Solar Scarabs have lost all of that lead that they had early on. The 4,000 that they had up maybe 7-8 minutes ago is now 4,000 the other way.
It is. Where will the Solar Scarabs go with their aggression? They are, well, not aggressing whatsoever. I meant defense. Where are they going to defend? Is it on tier 2s? Are they capable of lining up against the Leviathans in this situation? Because the siege potential of a Cthulhu and a Zeus and even a Daji with that ability to just burn away those defensive relics, if Baronic is not on point with that first ability, is so high. I think the Leviathans start to move their way in a swath across the map, working through these tier 1s, potentially going towards a tier 2. The Leviathans are a team that will slow play the initial Fire Giant. Not certain that we'll see them move in towards a Phoenix unless they're able to find a couple of picks. Could be that the Solar Scarabs, already so deep into their builds, allow these tier 1s and tier 2s to fall down. without too much fight back. And it seems to be the call already. No defense on the left-hand side. It's all Leviathans all the way down.
Yeah, Tier 1 will go down swiftly to Zapman. Tier 2 should fall just as fast here for the 3-time inbound. Trying to rotate in towards the fight. He'll spot a couple of them here, but Tier 2 is already gone. Zapman make a quick rush out. Scream is here, but intercepted by Wrong Yu. It's a good stun. Also support, but even better damage onto Scream. Nearly full comboed by Zapman. A little bit more damage is necessary to take him out. It'll be Shinto who finds it on the tail end of the fight. Now a full retreat out of the Solar Scarabs because Yarkor on this Cthulhu is just W-king at the entirety of the team. Triple knockup in the midst of the fight. Inbound uses the ultimate, but maybe in vain as Yark finds another triple before going back down into regular form.
Phoenix gonna burn quickly, and the Solar Scarabs realize they do not have a horse in this race. No defense from the Order side, and the Leviathans get to take their winnings and go home. Tier 1 tower, though, that one should fall pretty easily. Tier 2 as well. 30 seconds left on Scream's respawn. No ultimate from Stewart and no ultimate from Inbound. Could be the Solar Scarabs gonna have to wait a long time before they can line up in yet another engagement. Looking at the golden hand, look at the golden pocket for the Leviathans. You're already thinking that the lead is looking bad, but golden pocket makes not for a lead. It's what you do with it. And when they go back to base, just about every single member going to be finishing up their builds or moving in towards that 6th item.
Rongu gonna finish up the tower by himself. Shinto comes through to help, but Zapman went for a red buff invade on the other side, took that one off the map and away from the side of the Solar Scarabs. And as we continue to look down this build, Zapman still hasn't gone back yet with the nearly 3K he has in pocket to spend. Now that should be a finished starter item or a complete tier 3 item, depending which way he wants to go with there. Well, taking a look at Shinto's build too, the alternate timeline picked up because he realized, man, the Scarabs are doing a lot to try and kill me. Well, now he's got a second chance at life should the Scarabs find their way into that backline again.
And it's going to be pretty easy for the Leviathans to see Shinto fall down, take that time to say, okay, well, we got to peel back. We got to get back there and make sure he's got some time to survive because the peel tools are strong. You've got stuns from Zapman. You've got stuns from Wrong Yu. Yarkor with multi-man knockups while descended into madness. Even Panatom with his ultimate can dedicate his time to making sure that Shinto survives after this alternate timeline. Essentially going to act as just an extra Aegis in some of these team fights as the Leviathans start to slowly move their way across the rest of the map. The Solar Scarabs, or specifically Scream, doing a good job of pushing out that left-hand wave. Going to make it a little bit easier for the Scarabs to put up a defense around the Fire Giant proper. I do not think the Solar Scarabs should allow the Leviathans to take this Fire Giant. Though we've seen now the base defense is pretty lackluster from the Scarabs, or maybe it's more so that the Leviathans just got very strong siege potential. Fire Giant still a minute out from respawning. The Leviathans, they've got time to get ward control on the right-hand side.
Scream on the side of the Scarabs will at least push out a tier 2 on the opposite side, and that'll buy plenty of time for these minions over in the left lane before those firemen can start pushing in. The Leviathans aren't going to set up right away for the Fire Giant. They've got their carries on this right side to spot and see if the Scarabs go towards it. But with Yarkor and Panatom now on the way, should be a 5v5 around this Fire Giant, and it could be the final Fire Giant of this game. If we even see the Fire Giant go down, it could just be this one team fight to close it out.
It could be. The Leviathans still positioned towards mid, seeing if maybe they can catch anyone out. Is it Scream, Blink, and Leap will secure his escape, but those are thin margins. If Panatom is able to close that gap, I think we may be saying it's time to siege for the Leviathans. Fire Giant has barreled back down towards the earth, and the Solar Scarabs now going to have to step forward through these waves of wards. The Leviathans privy to every single step the Scarabs are taking.
And especially this big one right there by Inbound. That will finally get shredded away. But likewise, the Leviathans will take away any wards around the Fire Giant pit, at least down at the lower end of it, and grab a Pyromancer for their trouble. We're sitting at 11,000 plus gold in the lead for the Leviathans here, 28 minutes in. And reflected into the builds, I mean, Shinto is 6-slot himself, a Charon's coin for his final pickup. Yarkor gets a Magi's cloak for his final one to get that extra little CC bubble. Because, in reality, when you're looking at this team, there's not a whole lot of CC outside of Scary Dude, who's got to get very close to pop that.
He does. Leap and aggressive from Zapman. See if maybe he can connect an axe. No good. Inbound, though. He's been caught.
Picked off and grabbed by the Palau. An easy pick here.
Watch it.
For the Solar Scarabs, but Zapman gets yanked back in. Use the beats and Aegis after he's made his way through the wall. Centaurus out of Baronic will find some solid damage on the carry of the Leviathans, but they should be fine and happy with their pick.
Zatman can resustain with Uul passive. Scary D has made the rotation. He was on that Phoenix line, allows the minion wave back in, maybe worried about the Fire Giant. In doing so, loses the Phoenix, potentially his life. Only 50% of his HP bar here. Scream nearby, should be able to resustain with that Soul Eater and maybe get involved on this fire. Not the case. The Leviathans take this one absolutely for free. Left side Phoenix has fallen yet again, so they do not need to concern themselves with this side of the map. The Leviathans, they're going to try and crack the base on the right.
They'll walk right down. It'll be 3 versus 5 to start this one out. Scary D and Baronic on the opposite side of the map right now. Scary D slowly making his way towards this right. But with these walls from inbound, it's at least slowing down the pace of the Leviathans. Not able to attack through that wall, at least not right now. Stewart will be the primary wave clear here alongside with Baronic. So for now, the Scarabs are holding back the Leviathans. For how long can they hold them back is the question.
Yeah, the Leviathans, it's pretty clear where their go button is, and it's named Yar Core. Whether or not that Descent into Madness finds value could spell whether or not the game ends here or extends even further. Wrong you. Dropped low. This is an in from Scream.
Scream goes in, does throw the ultimate, doesn't get anybody pulled back with it. A Pow Lao will be beats away by Scream, and Yarkor up, and this Cthulhu is taking no damage whatsoever. Stewart finds a few with the Petrify. That's big damage, but so is the damage right back towards inbound. Yarkor takes down one, finds a double knockup on this Cthulhu, but the Lightning Storm is zoning away the Solar Scarab. Scary D finds Panatom, but doesn't have enough damage to take down this dodge. Geez, somehow, some way, all of the Leviathans make it out and get the Phoenix.
Scream low, but so is the Leviathans. Whether or not that chase was going to happen seems to not be the case. And even if it had, the Leviathans spot him out on more wards deep on the Solar Scarab side of the map. This is clinical aggression. Maybe not clinical anymore. Seems like Scary D just stepped a little too far forward.
Scary D just running the only way that he can at this point. That's away from the team. Can't even go back towards his own base for safety. Zatman should have some damage to take him down. Panatom can close the gap and take out this bear. And it will be the kill going to Panatom. Now 12th one up for the Atlantis Leviathans. 31 minutes into this game, and they still have plenty of time on this Fire Giant. Another 2 minutes before they wear out on that buff, and only one Phoenix left standing.
Yeah, 5 members strong as well. The Leviathan's going to start their siege down the center of the map now. Going to be 40 seconds left until Scary D can try and line up with his boys and try and put up a defense to maintain the base. I don't think the Leviathan's going to give him that amount of time. Shinto, though, pretty far away. Leviathans for the next 5-6 seconds going to be fighting without their mid laner.
You see the Dragon transformation out of Wrong Yu. The course is available. Going to Zatman if necessary. Panatom uses the Pow Lao. Who will he pull in? Won't be inbound. He'll have the ultimate to get out. Instead, it's Baronic who gets yanked back into this Chiron on the run. A lot of damage thrown his way. A teleport in, but Baronic should be as good as dead up against these two. Who's going to get the final shot? Looks like it'll be Yarkor while inbound goes down. Baronic right after the Centaurs will only delay the inevitable. And the Atlantis Leviathans will turn this game around. They will take down Scream. They will take down 4 of the Scarabs. And they'll take down the Titan to get game number 1.
In spite of Scream's best efforts and a phenomenal early game from the Bastet, the Solar Scarabs are not able to secure a dub in this one. The Leviathans, with the superior late game draft, are able to drag themselves into that late game and then flourish once they get there. Team fights post 20 minutes, I don't think they were ever in question.
Man, that's just what we were talking about on the desk. That's what we were talking about here in the cast specifically was the Leviathans love the late game. This is a game that they play for every opportunity that they get. It's just all on the coin of the team going against them to try and drag that early game out. Solid start by the Scares, but just not quite enough.
No, not quite, but some good facets of the gameplay that I think the Solar Scarabs can lean on. Maybe inbound cleans up some of that early game aggression. The Bastet certainly works out. No notes for Scream. Keep doing what you're doing, Scream. Baronic has a great performance on the Chiron. But when you're lined up against the reigning world champions, you can't just do well. You can't just do good. You got to be perfect, and this time it wasn't the Scarabs.
Not going to be a win for Scarabs in game 1. It'll be going over to the Leviathans. We're going to take it to a quick break, and then we'll come back to get you set up for game number 2.
had no idea which way game one was going to go for the large majority of game number one. The Solar Scarabs off to a great start. They get a 3,000 gold lead. Things go back to even. And the Scarabs start winning again. And the Leviathans look like vintage Leviathans back in the sanguine days of this roster, which is a good and a bad thing, Trelly, because they fall behind early by a pretty hefty margin. That's the bad thing. But the good thing is that Sanguine team was amazing at coming back from like 3,000 gold leads down and team fighting late into the game. And that's exactly what this roster has to lean into here in this game. You suffer some early game losses. And after there was one skirmish around that FG where the Leviathans come pretty handily out ahead of Shinto has a great team fight. They left the Scarabs in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, I mean, Shinto was finding a little bit of focus towards that early portion of the game when the Scarabs were winning, but late game, like you said, they were confident in their 5v5 team fight, and they executed perfectly. I think Yarkor, again, on this Cthulhu was very difficult to deal with despite that lead. I mean, just when you have this tanky target that can just face tank, run down the mid lane, tank up the towers for you, it's very difficult to try and win these team fights.
Yeah, Shinto really stepped things up as well down the stretch. That's a simple enough kill. And this is, it's so unique with the way that both of the carries are for the Leviathans, because Shinto, to your point, and Zapman as well, I mean, they're like 0-2, 0-3, like both early on in this game. Just a slow wind up. Eventually the items get online. Yarkor stayed even, stayed strong enough to tank up the front lines in a lot of these fights. And that's always the threat that this Leviathans team bring, where it feels like, 3,000-4,000 gold once you get into the late game team fight phase. Not nearly enough to keep this team behind. And so where Zeus started off struggling a lot, Trelly, Shinto eventually got strong enough along with the rest of the team to really step in. I think Zapman had two totally different games within one game, 0-3 or whatever out of the laning phase. Nothing going his way, ends up 3-4-8 with a lot of those deaths coming early on. And so I think this is now difficult for the Scarabs. Nobody's sounding the alarm bells just yet. I mean, it's just game one of this set. You're halfway through phase one. But if you're looking at this specific game, you got to be a little disappointed. You set the stage perfectly for yourself to take a win here in game one. You're in the lead. You're going strong into the mid game, and you let some team fighting separate you from a win.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. As I said before, I thought if the Scarabs were able to take game one, the Leviathans are very good at making the adjustments in that game two setting. This time around, the Leviathans, they take game one, and they made the adjustments mid-match. We sort of saw them just realize what was happening, realize, hey, okay, we just got to change a few things about our team fight. Late game, we're going to come online, and we're just going to take this game now. As you mentioned, if you're the Scarabs, you sort of have to go, well, how did we let that game get away from us? We did so much right. I don't think if you're the Scarabs right now, you want to harp too much on how you threw that one away. Just say, we were able to get this lead. We found some success in the duo lane. We found some, Scream was able to find these ganks. Let's try to, get that back to us and then go back to our 5v5 team fight. And this time, do a little better.
And Leviathans will take game number one, which means the Scarabs got them right where they want them heading into picks and bans for game two. The Scarabs, a team at the end of Season 8, notorious for losing game one, winning game two, and then flipping a coin in game number 3. So now it is time to dip back into history a little bit here if you are the Solar Scarabs. Let's keep things consistent, though, in the bans. We don't want to let wrong you play Umoja. 81% ban rate against the Leviathans is this Umoja. I'm not sure, and we'll see throughout the rest of this weekend. I'm going to keep this in the back of my head. 81% win rate as far as like a unique god ban for one of these teams. We're going to see a lot of Erlang Shen banned out. We're going to see a lot of Kleedna banned out, but like that is very much just a wrong you ban at 81%. I'm curious if that might just be the highest individual player god duo ban rate in the league. So keep that in the back of your mind. That's a stat I'm going to follow along with this weekend. Bans remain the exact same, except Cthulhu gets taken away here. So Yarkor is going to have to be on something different. And that is a decent ban here, a decent weighted ban, because Yarkor, to your point, Trelly, look near unstoppable by the end of game number 1.
Feel my pain.
Scarabs think Medusa wasn't an issue, and they'll stick with it here on the left.
Yeah, I don't think the Medusa was an issue either. It was just they weren't able to really burn down this Cthulhu, so now you don't have as big of a tanky target. No matter who you're going to draft here, the Leviathans in that soul lane, it can't be as hard to kill as Cthulhu, right? So I think they've already done themselves a huge favor taking that one away now. Leviathans, they won't be able to grab the Cthulhu here. They will be able to grab the Daji if they want, once again, like they did last time, but they are going to have to make a small adjustment. Could be the Ardio, you know, something along those lines. They were picking solo jungle here. Will they continue? We'll have to see, but
Yeah.
I still think the Zeus option is going to be there. Shinto looked very solid on it besides that early game, but again, Zeus doesn't really come online just yet, so just a little bit of survivability if they do take the Daji away. It'd be a solid pick nonetheless.
Yeah, Daji ended up being pretty effective for Panatom at times, despite some counterplay. It was Cabrakan banned out by the Scarabs in that third ban slot game 1. Cabrakan left open this time around. Where does he land, though, ends up still being the question. I feel like, you know, even though we talk about some of the diversity in pick options, Trelly, I feel like jungle has been the more prominent, but Daji would make me think twice. Of course, support and solo being the other two options that we've seen. Depending on the team, mid could be an option, but I doubt it here for the Leviathans. Daji plus Cabrakan, initiation, lockdown, setup, already pretty high here for the Leviathans with 2 picks.
Yeah, I'm thinking if last draft was any indication, they want to take solo and jungle here. But as you mentioned, you still have to keep your hands up. You know, is this going to be a solo? Is it going to be a support Cabrakan? You're going to have to pick around that fact. But they do have some options here if you are the Scarabs. This time around, you still don't want to really pick that Zeus into the Daji and think unless you have an answer for it. Obviously, I don't have any issues with the Chiron into the Daji either. I mean, their double Hunter comps seem to work out. This is going to be a little bit of a change-up, though. That Ymir in the support was the play last time around. This time, though, going to be a Sylvanas. Inbounds pulls have been quite solid, and that's usually my mark of, can you pick a Sylvanas here? Are you going to be consistently getting those pulls in? Because if you're not, why are you even picking the Sylvanas? Just for the sustain, there's other options. So inbounds pulls, we did see a little bit ago. Pretty solid. So I do think I like the change this draft as well. A little bit safer, but the Leviathans, they're just going to run back to Zeus.
Yeah, Zeus, 40% win rate across a 59 plus 26. Trelly, help me out here. That's 60. Why? This is so bad. This is an indictment on the U.S. education system. It's like 95 or something like that. I don't know. It's 85. Yes, 85%. And I'm saying that confidently and moving on immediately. 40% win rate is the obvious number in front of my face there. Is the big takeaway is that Zeus has been picked a good bit, but has won just under half of the times that we see this pick end up getting locked in. Could be similar, though, for Shinto here, Trelly, depending on the jungle pick for the Solar Scarabs, because remember, the early game of Game 1 was slow and difficult for the Zeus, but by the time late game rolled around, there wasn't much of an answer. So that's what the Solar Scarabs are going to have to find an answer to later on. Won't be a Bastet, though, or Nemesis. Scream taking a couple bans down the stretch.
Yeah, this time around, the Bastet is not going to be the option for the Scarabs. They've already made one adjustment in the draft with that Sylvanas instead of the Ymir, so we'll have to see what Scream wants to go to. Again, killing Zeus has to be the name of the game, trying to mitigate how much Shinto's able to do on this pick, make him feel not very safe in his own lane, that sort of thing. That's got to be the draft style here. A Blink Sylvanas ult that'll go a long way, I think, trying to get those beads down. So if Scream wants to go something that can benefit from that, certainly an option. We see the Ho Yi pick for Zapman. That's going to be interesting. I mean, you know, the CERN has been banned away, so I'd say that this would be a solid answer back. You know, nice safety in the lane. Obviously, Zap found himself a little bit of pressure last game, so I'm just wanting to make sure, hey, I've got this leap to get away. I can drop the Suns to really peel for myself, that sort of thing. Not the best clear, but hey, the Leviathans have already proven they're looking for the late game fight. We don't have to win lane early.
Yeah, if Zapman can just survive, just sustain through lane, it'll maybe shut down or speed up the timer maybe for the Leviathans a little bit as far as getting relevant and feeling strong enough going into team fights. Inbound, not worried about much. Always a guy with a smile on his face, communicating with the rest of his team. And I know that Inbound does, you know, just in general likes this Sylvanas pick, and I think Inbound totes himself as one of the best Sylvanases in the world.
Self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed, right. And had a chance to prove it
Face
in game
the
number
wrath
2.
of a sorceress
Morgan Le Fay
scorned.
for Baronic. A 67% win rate. Now, that's only across 3 games, so you can only take so much of that away until I think you get a few more games to really establish a trend here. But Morgan Le Fay does feel like a very Baronic pick nowadays, where not many mids in the SPL are reaching for this pick, but one of Baronic's most played gods in Season 8 and could be moving forward here into Season 9. Good range, confirmed damage, things like that. But how does that make things interesting here, Trelly? Because I see what I assume are 3 carry-style picks locked in for the Solar Scarabs. Sylvanas, there's got to be support here, right? So between Medusa, Chiron, and Morgan Le Fay, one of those is going to be in the jungle.
Yeah, you said it for sure. It's going to have to be, I mean, the Shiva has got to be jungle, right? That's what I imagine. So you're putting Scary D on either.
You think Shiva's jungle or Shiva's solo?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a question now. I mean, looking at this comp, it could be a few things. To me,
Do I want Medusa, Chiron, or Morgan Le Fay in solo?
right, I mean, maybe.
Up against
okay,
an
you know
Ardia?
what? You know what? I think I figured it out.
All right,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right, so Scream likes the ESET jungle, right?
Okay.
This time around, he's saying Morgan Le Fay's got some of the things ESET has. You know, he's got there's a fear that there's CC. I don't know, I'm grasping at straws here, but I think that's got to be the option, right? Morgan Le Fay ganks are going to be better than anything else we see here. I assume.
Watch,
I'm
watch
trying.
it's Sylvanas jungle, and we're just totally wrong. Shiva support with one of the two carries in ADC. Hey, look,
It could be.
push the envelope, right? If you're the Solar Scarabs here, game one, you realize you're off to a good lead, ends up fumbling away from you a little bit later on in the game in those team fights. Keep things interesting as the mystery hand reaches through. I'll give anyone. Actually, no, I'm not going to make a bet. I will assume that everyone at home can guess whose hand that is. I was going to say I'll bet you $5 you can't, but I know that everyone can because there's only one person on our team who would stick their hand into a live camera shot, and I'll let you guess who that is. Atlantis Leviathans maybe a little bit more standard here as
Right.
far as their draft goes. Trelly, Kabrakan, and Daji. Kabrakan now likely falls to support. So Kabrakan plus Ho Yi, Ardio over in solo. I think based just on standard, right, you'd assume the Leviathans have a better draft, but as far as throwing curveballs and making us confused and maybe uncomfortable, Solar Scarabs are bringing something unique.
I mean, the Solar Scarabs were winning, game one. They had the early lead. They weren't able to finish it off. They had to throw a wrench in the Leviathans' mojo, if you will, somehow.
Yeah.
Looks like it's going to be throwing 3 carries at you. You don't know where it's going to be coming from. You're going to have to adhere to our play style. That's the idea.
Let's find some answers to this puzzle of a draft. Solar Scarabs versus Atlantis Leviathans. Game number 2.
Yeah, let's see where everything pops out here. What's going in the jungle, what's going in the solo is the mystery question. And it will be the Morgan Le Fay jungle coming here for Scream. I'll be honest, before we were jumping in, I was calling for the Medusa jungle. That's mostly just because a personal thing. I love that pick in the jungle. But
say what you kept saying in the mic.
Madungle.
Yep.
The Madungle.
Heard that one a lot.
Yeah. That's, I don't know if you can hear Dave. He's walking around going, that sucks. But, hey, I was hoping that we
You
could
didn't have
see
to tell
one
them
here.
that. We could, look, Dave loved it, and so did Trelly.
I think Charlie really, really loved it. We got a good chuckle at him as he walked out the door there. It's J-Mac and Mifflin here with Doug for game number 2 of the Solar Scarabs and the Leviathans. But Morgan Le Fay jungle, that's the one that we're going to dial in because that's the one that is locked in here. Charlie talking about some of the things that it has similar to ESET jungle, some decent range and some decent CC out of this guy.
You know, I'm gonna turn some heads with this one.
Okay.
I think Morgan Le Fay jungle is not bad, and it's gonna perform similarly to how like Herc jungle works or like tier jungle. It's blink past them, dragon flight towards your team every single time. Followed up by a fear. It's essentially like a blink fearless. It's essentially a blink driving strike because that's how quickly that CC comes out. And you've got a lot of movement speed to chase out your targets thanks to that third ability.
Oh, good knockup by Scary D. One more auto from Scream. No,
Yikes.
the heal from Yarkor. Gets him just enough HP for this Ardio. Oh, yeah, by the way, Yarkor's back on Ardio. A lot of similarity in the top 3 of the draft there from the Leviathans. We see the Ardio, Daji, and Zeus come back once again. Zapman on the Ho Yi, which in Season 8, he was the only player who was winning on Ho Yi. Then we saw some more wins come out of the god, but Zapman wants to reprise that and bring some more dubs over to this god.
Yeah, I think Ho Yi and Zapman should just be like, it's like the god player combo that you're looking for. Because Zapman, generally in his streaming career, or like his ranked career, less so in competitive, does fall behind because he gets the Zapman treatment. He gets camped in his lane. And Ho Yi is the best hunter in the game, bar none. I'm not willing to have a debate. It's not a conversation. I'm simply stating a fact. He is, bar none, the best hunter at fighting from behind. If you're 2, 3 levels down, there are not many hunters that still have potential to win a 1v1 against their opposition. I don't care if you're 4 levels down. Triple bounce, ricochet, just going to kill regardless.
Panatom wants to find a kill on this left side of the map. I'm not sure if inbound spawn him. It's a blink stun out of Wrong You. Inbound will heal up a little bit, and those wisps giving enough HP for a turnaround. Stewart picks this one back up and actually gets a return fire pull in by inbound. and then locks Wrong U in place down to half HP. But the Scarabs in a 3v2, turning around for first blood.
Yeah, should have thought twice before you approached, and, well, that damage output the Medusa's got, the CC lockdown of Sylvanas, the healing and protections, all going to add up quickly as Panatom may have stepped too far forward into his own speed buff.
We'll make it back to the tier 2. Not quite enough
Yikes.
damage out of Baronic, but a lot nonetheless to put Panatom down at critical health. And well, he's going to have to sustain as much as he can with what little is left inside of his jungle, because all of it is being taken by the Solar Scarabs. Speed buff stolen and a blue invade will put the Solar Scarabs up 700 gold to start this game.
Yeah, Scream has just stayed on the right-hand side of the map. That's exactly where he wants to play. I suppose just sticking around Scary D or sticking around Baronic will alleviate some of the weaknesses of Morgan Le Fay. She is never taking a 1v1. She does not want to line up against this Daji ever. You don't want to meet Panatom in the jungle if you are Scream. But in 2v2s, you're feeling pretty good. You've got great displacement. You've got great chase down potential. Just needs one other person nearby to finish off those kills. It's going to be a little while until this Morgan Le Fay can do it all on her own. But now that Scream's got Ultimate available, does have some decent kill potential at that. Specifically, maybe onto Zapman, maybe towards Shinto if somebody else can burn that Lightning Storm first, because otherwise, you're probably just dying to that. I'm curious. I'm really interested to see how this one plays out.
I'm also interested to see how the Shiva goes in solo lane. So far in the SPL, we've only seen it go towards jungle a couple of times. We saw Rongyu take over into support. I think in SCC we did see it go over towards solo one time here, but this is our first look here in the SPL at Shiva solo. So I'm going to keep my eyes on how the build path goes here. Runeforge, an item probably not going to be picked up by him. I know that the knockups really don't proc well with that one, but still down this tree nonetheless could be Blackthorn. There's a double knockup though from the Dragonfly. Panatom going the opposite way away from Shinto. He does get enough XP to get that Pow Lao, but will he be able to pull anybody in is the question. Scream will get cleansed out. Baronic, not so fortunate, pulled into the Pow Lao. Big damage out of Scream, and he'll drop Panatom down.
Man, the Solar Scarabs just making their weirdo picks work. Let your freak flag fly, I suppose, if you're a Solar Scarabs fan, because this is just an interesting combination of picks that is working out incredibly well. Whether or not they can continue to leverage this into the mid-game towards these objectives once they spawn up, that's going to be the question. How well is Scream going to perform in these objective dances? How well is Scary D going to be able to use this Shiva out of the soul lane and start rotating towards some of these fights? Speaking of Scary D, just chilling in the lane. I was curious. Usually when you're zoning or like freezing wave, you play a little bit further up. My man is just having a good time.
He's listening to the music that plays whenever you would ult normally. I think he might have that on his playlist just going in the background. Just vibing over here in the solo lane. Did go with the Bluestone start, so a little bit more aggression, a little bit more wave clear here. Not that Shiva really needs a lot of wave clear. I mean, between that sweep and then the knockup right after with that Conal second ability, you do a lot of damage on this god.
You really do, and moving in towards this style of build, I wonder if he's going to go more so down the utility tree, stick towards that defense. If he wants to be a dedicated diver, does he stick with power? Very curious to see. I'm interested to see whether or not Scream maxes out the Dragonflight next or the third ability. Doug showed it a little bit earlier, but he is maxing the Sigil right now, that first ability, which was the OG standard, but nowadays in mid, which is the only other role we've seen Morgan Le Fay in, you do generally max that third, as it is your most consistent, clear inbound cut out.
That's a nice knock-up onto Wrong U, but this detonate won't be enough damage to take him down. Just a little too tanky with the help of the shell and with the help of those Wisps inbound. Able to make it out of the Kabrakan Zeus combo.
That does not bode well for the Leviathans. That is just a massive drop and a massive team fight to a loss. Two of them, to be exact. Rongyu, Blink, and ult. Shinto, just his ultimate there. And what does it cost inbound? Shell? I suppose that's exactly what you're using it for, so no loss to the Solar Scarabs here. Scream hovering on the left-hand side. Not sure how a matchup between Morgan Le Fay, Jungle, and a Ho Yi is going to look, and neither does Scream, so he's going to go ahead and walk himself out of there and instead try and play around this mid 3v3 while the Leviathans are weakened.
Wrongyu's ult is down, as is inbound and Shinto, but inbound is still taking a lot of damage. Should go down to this Pow Lao. No older beads to find their way out. Baronic doesn't have the cleanse available to help him out of there. Panatom is the one who comes out on top in the fight. But Stewart rotating all the way over from left. That'll at least secure the offering camp and an obelisk for the Scarabs.
So a little bit more gold and a little scroll to walk around with you and help out with some of these engagements. A couple of targets on the Solar Scarabs could make pretty good usage of the Scepter. I think it will likely go over to Stewart as Scream Just goes in?
He's winning this one, too. He 2v1s Shinto and Wrong Yu. Baronic wasn't even there to throw damage out there. Scream just decided he's going to W key at the Leviathans.
It's a simple combo, man. Blink, Dragonflight, I'm hitting everything else after that. You don't miss when somebody's been hit by Dragonflight. You're able to stack up a good deal of your passive and get additional value out of your ultimate. That is a clean play. Shinto doesn't have time to react whatsoever. Beads and ultimate held on to, so I suppose still strong once he rotates back in towards this team fight. God, I love watching Scream play, man. This is just... He's doing it in the SPL.
It's wild.
Is this allowed?
Apparently it is, because he's doing it right now, 2-0 on this Morgan Le Fay jungle. It's such an oddball pick that it really feels like it's the Scarabs who come out with these really weird compositions, these really odd jungle picks. I mean, we saw Scream do what, like a Terra jungle last year? That one maybe not as successful out here. Now we're seeing the Morgan Le Fay this time around. This guy's weird, but he's making the weird work.
And the only unfortunate part of the Morgan Le Fay jungle is how ruined every casual lobby is going to be for like the next week.
Don't even mention that.
Yeah, avoid Conquest in the casual queues just for a little while until people realize that Scream does it because he's Scream, you know, a young Spracklin, and we're not all him.
Ooh, nice little ricochet there by Zapman. Puts some damage onto Stewart. Stewart's just trying to get back in the lane. Zapman won't let him back in, at least not through that jungle corridor. Stewart will have to take the long route back in here. It is a crusher start by Stewart, very standard that we've seen from the Medusa, but Zapman going for a little bit more of this late game style, this early just farm path. Gilded Arrow and Devourer's Gauntlets. And Scream finally caught out for being so far up, but the detonate's not there. Scream
Are you sure?
Turns it back around, keeps up one. Stewart rotates in, finds Zapman. Now Panatom walks past two different people, but all the other follow-up was used to kill the other two, so Panatom may just get to live for this team fight.
Wisp down for about 8 more seconds, so no healing available for Scream, who sticks around, takes a good deal of damage, but Shell's good.
Scream still gonna live through this. Even the Paladin's not
No
enough. The body
shots.
blocks are good. Stewart finds the double kill in the fight. The Scarabs kill 4 and lose none. Are you kidding me?
The Solar Scarabs just taking these team fights so well. Scream lives through everything. It's that Spear of the Magus lifesteal. It's the Stone of Binding defense. Just survives the detonate from there. What's Shinto gonna do? All of his abilities are down. Scream's got Excalibur pulled out, doing Getsuga 10 shows on the middle of the map. This is ridiculous. The Solar Scarabs, 7-1 against the reigning world champions with a massive lead. He's still going.
Maybe 8. Shinto does make it out. Needs to juke out all these Centaur's shots. Only one connects. The Masterful Bluestone, not quite enough. Shinto will squeak by off a couple of missed shots there by Baronic. But Scream found the gas pedal, and normally you put a brick down the gas pedal. He put a whole other car on the gas pedal. He is not stopping.
Wow, so it's like a convertible, right? Like
right.
open
yeah,
top, got
open
another
top,
car.
new car jumped in.
Got it. Yeah, I'm with you. Normally I'd clown you because that's crazy what you just said, but
he's crazier.
Yeah, you earned it, man. Scream level 12 as opposed to Panatom's level 10. Second relic available, going towards a build path that I just would not have expected, and it's just making it work all the way across the map. But can the Solar Scarabs continually push this lead? Is this draft something that can line up in an actual 5-on-5 engagement? It's a similar position as what we saw in Game 1. Lead much larger, though, here in Game 2 for the Solar Scarabs. The Leviathans were largely able to keep it to around that 2,000 mark at the 10-minute mark and then hold on to that for about 20 until they were able to turn it around completely around these Gold Fury and Fire Giant dances. The Solar Scarabs, though, have already taken the Gold Fury. Can start looking towards that Pyromancer.
Some damage by Scream into the solo lane here. Yarkor still fairly tanking on this RDO. Is just sitting here wondering what in the world is going on across the rest of the map. The solo laners are just doing their own thing. They're literally on their own little island at this point. I mean, we saw the solo laners, like 2 minutes into the game, and from there, we haven't really talked or seen much of them since then. It's all been over on the center and left side of the map here. Solar Scarabs up 7-1 here at the 11-minute mark, about a 3,500 gold lead too. So we're in a similar position that we were in game number 1 with the Scarabs with this nice early lead. But about 6-7 minutes from now is when the Leviathans started kicking up in game 1.
Eventually, it's just going to be a Morgan Le Fay. Eventually, it's no longer a Morgan Le Fay jungle. It's just a late game, level 20 Morgan on your team. And there is dive potential and great dive potential from the Leviathans if they are able to stabilize on the map. Wrongyu specifically can just do this.
Finds two with the ultimate. Scream goes in and fires some long-range shots, but Panatom is chased him down, gets pushed back by the Dragonfly. Baronic left all by themselves, and the Lightning Storm will make sure he goes down, but it'll be a quick revive back in from Baronic as he gets the reset, but not enough. Shinto manages to find one, and Scary D's still in the midst of this fight, trying to find a path out. Panatom will slow him down, and Scream will throw one against the wall, but Zatman has shown up to the fight, put his name on the board, and the Leviathans find two.
Not quite enough damage from Scream to secure that kill, and Wrongyu narrowly avoids getting finished off by Stewart. 3 members of the Solar Scarabs still hovering the right side of the map. Zatman, no ultimate available, will not move over towards the Pyromancer. Thought maybe the Leviathans would try and take that neutral instead. Why not take a permanent objective? Yarkor pushing a wave into that tier 1 tower. That is a great answer the Leviathans have for Scream. In blinking forward, Wrongyu that is, goes in, throws up the wall. Scream immediately has to respond with his ultimate. Does not want to lose out on the longer cooldown, the beads for the CC immunity. So loses out on the ability to finish off his kills. He blinks forward, or doesn't blink forward, walks forward, finds the Dragonflight, was able to peel out, but just does not have enough damage without that 4th ability to finish anybody off. And the Solar Scarabs clearly need Scream to do a whole lot of it. Has 80% kill participation throughout the entirety of Season 8 for a reason, and has 7 out of 8 kill participation in Game 2 of this set for a reason. He is one of the win conditions of the Solar Scarabs. If the Leviathans can limit him, that's one way back in.
Inbound is just casually strolling up to this Pyro. He doesn't manage to steal it, but maybe they can get a pick here. Does get to find the pull on Wrongyu, but that wall is going to slow
Surely
him
not.
down. The Blue Stone, not enough to kill Wrongyu here. The Leviathans make it out with everybody, and they don't lose a single relic to do so, only the ultimate out of Wrongyu.
And now the Solar Scarabs can start their push forward. Scary D in first. Great Petrify.
Finds 3 with it. Shinto beats and ages down, and that's the call for Scream and Scary D to go to the backline. The dance is good to hold him out as Scream picks up 1 in the fight. But that pal out from Panatom will not grab anybody. Now the Scarabs can fall back after their siege in the mid. They take a tier 1, and Wrongyu decides to go right back in. There's no ults available. No beads to get him out of here. Wrongyu will just go down.
Yeah, I don't think Wrongyu realized how many Solar Scarabs were there. Blinks into 4, essentially alone, and dies alone. The Solar Scarabs, great aggression. Scary D does use his ultimate to initiate that fight, walking forward, finishing off his kills. So Panatom is at least able to force the beads out of this Shiva on the tail end of the dance. But that said, the Solar Scarabs take a clean team fight and potentially some more here. Scary D may have spotted out Zapman, but with Panatom meeting up with him in the jungle, won't have a whole lot of potential to shut him down, as a ranged auto attack jungler can do just this. With Stewart, trade that aggro back and forth. Nobody dropped low. Gold Fury dropped down. Solar Scarabs even further in the lead.
Man, it feels like it's been a while since we've seen that strategy come out for Gold Fury. It felt like for a short time a couple of seasons ago, that was the most popular way to tank that one. You bounce your 2 carries back and forth. They trade it out so you don't take a lot of damage, and then kind of just didn't see it for a while. Teams just kind of stopped caring about doing the ping pong method here, but...
You want to know why?
Why is that?
It's like super unsafe. You only really do that if like 4 people are dead on the other side, or you know nobody's walking up, because you got to drag it to like their side of the map, then back to yours. It really opens you up to steals. The Solar Scarabs only do it because they realize there's no steal potential.
Scary D pops the ultimate right away, and we'll get some heals through. Not quite enough to stay fully alive, but maybe with the help of the rest of the Scarabs he can. Dash away from Wrongyu, but pulled back into the Pal Lao. But somehow Scary D's able to at least walk a little further. Wrongyu gets him with the ultimate, but Scream doesn't have a way to get back into this fight with those walls standing in his way. Yarkor here, so is Stewart to pop some damage, but the Bear should be able to find a path out of here unless the Scarabs can collapse in quickly.
Man, look at Scream's build before we get the re-engage. Won't get a chance. Stewart, dash forward, petrify for the slow, gets the beads off of Yarkor, can inbound connect the pull. No, sir. Misses off on his own route. Unlucky.
Unfortunate there for inbound. A rare misplay that we see there, missing his own pull off the setup CC that he guaranteed for himself. So Solar Scarabs don't get that pick onto Yarkor.
He didn't call it. You know, sometimes you don't have your teammates call the CC. He didn't call the route, so how is he supposed to know with the pull? That's unlucky, man. Just got to work on those comms.
But they do get beads off Yarkor. Maybe at least the silver lining out of here is that they do get 140 seconds before that one is back up. So Yarkor a little less safe on this RDO.
Yeah, but RDO pretty safe in her own right.
I mean, I know it's saying a little less safe on RDO is whatever, but...
Hey, but you know, you're right. Some pull potential. Displace them. Maybe the damage output pretty good. The CC chain's ridiculous. Doug Gives us some slight hovers on Scream's build. Yeah, it's weird. Spear of the Magus and a Stone of Binding immediately into Pythag's piece, and now what I can only imagine is going to be a Soul Reaver in the next slot. Not the most traditional mage build, not the most traditional mage jungle build. Generally, you want like an Ob Shard or some like earlier stacks of CDR. Instead, just going down this utility path, making everyone around him a little bit stronger, and he is still benefiting from percentage additional damage thanks to the passive of Spear of the Magus. So he's not sacrificing too much. I wonder what he rounds out this build with, though. Maybe like a Protector of the Jungle, if he's worried about dives starting to come his way in these late-game team fights. Percentage protections, always going to be good. And then like a Rada Tahuti, give you just 10% penetration and a massive infusion of power. Might go a long way. I'm stealing this build. I'm the guy in your casuals inting on Morgan Le Fay jungle. I am psyched to see this.
And then everybody's going to go and complain, like, guys, this Mifflin guy's in my lobbies. He's
I'm actually
ruining my
Ares no chains. So.
Okay, so if you see Ares no chains, is that because you don't ever fire your chains with Ares?
No, it's just I didn't want to get sniped anymore.
Oh. I thought you had a reason behind at least a portion of the name there.
No.
Okay, fair enough there. Fair enough. Solar Scarabs grouping up on this top left side of the jungle. But now it's all 5 of the Leviathans here to slow them down. Panatom will go towards the mid lane, so be out of this fight for a little bit, but the Scarabs are willing to make a commit inside this jungle. Could just be the call for Tier 1 tower, as Stewart and Bronic, double ADC, should be able to knock that one down pretty easily.
They will. Do they continue the push, though? It's a little while till Gold Fury respawns. The Solar Scarabs are committed to this. Look at Scary D's positioning. He's going to try and work his way around the back of this team fight. Could spawn out Panatom, who's already low. Any bit of poke trade there will favor the Shiva, as he has got a good deal of healing in the kit. That said, Panatom able to resustain, a fair deal. The Solar Scarabs going to start to fall back. Pyromancer has respawned, so if they can rotate over, it's one way in.
Rongyu does get the ult and finds Scary D inside of the ult, but not much more beyond there. Now it's a re-engage by Scary D. Doesn't find the pull on Rongyu. The Trimmers are doing a lot of work. Scream dives under the Tier 2 tower to get the kill on Shinto, but he doesn't get it. Instead, it's Scream going down, and Baronic has to finish up the job here. Rongyu goes down to Scary D. Zatman in the fight. Stewart is falling low inside the Suns as Zatman shuts him down, and the 2v2 is not looking healthy for the side of the Solar Scarabs. They've got to retreat.
It's a 2-4-2 trade, though. Zatman trying to turn it to 3 as Scary D lines up. Knock up no good. Damage is good from the 3 times. Just a couple more auto attacks is all it's going to take. Can he connect the last? Scary D slightly out of range. Dodges the ricochet. Knock up. Not on the mark. Zatman able to put him down with relative ease as Baronic and Inbound limp themselves away from that team fight. We saw Scream go into the Tier 2 tower. You might be scratching your head. Why is he doing that? Isolated by the Lightning Storm. I don't think he had any other option to survive because he can't walk back towards his team. 2 more ticks of Lightning Storm just kills him. So he tries to leverage the lifesteal between Pythags and Spear of the Magus to heal off of Shinto, and in doing so, at least creates the opportunity for Baronic to finish off that kill. Trades his life for 1 against this Zeus, and I'd call that a value trade. That said, the Solar Scarabs were not in a position to stick around afterwards. Stewart gets caught in the Raining Suns by Zatman, and the Leviathans are starting to prove yet again why they are the reigning world champions. If you allow them to group up as 5, if you allow them to get to these late game team fights, they're pretty good at it.
See the Scarabs grouping around the right side of the map. Thought maybe there'd be a call to start up this Fire Giant potentially, do a bit of a heat check towards the Leviathans, but as soon as that Gold Fury got down to the last 10%, 3 different Leviathans players had rotated to that right side of the map. So no Fire Giant for the Scarabs. Tier 1 tower ends up getting a few minions pushed in here. And it does end up being a Soul Reaver here by Scream for that 4th item. Now it's a matter of what will that starter finish up to, and even what will that last item be out here? I mean, do you think percent pen is the call?
It's gotta be Tahuti, right?
I mean, could you go Tahuti?
Soul Gem? I don't know.
I'm not sure exactly here. Inbound off the mark on the pull. Some decent damage onto Yarkor from this jungle Morgan Le Fay. Yarkor at half health will have to go away, but a knockup by Inbound. The Centaurus out of Baronic will take down Yarkor. First one off the board for the Leviathan. Puts the Scarabs up and ahead in the fight, but the pull is off the mark by Inbound, and Zatman has rotated back in this fight. A shell popped by Inbound to get the team out.
Scream still full HP. Scary D and Inbound may have lost out on a little bit of their own, but healing from Sylvanas will resustain if Scary D wants to. Can just use his own ultimate to resustain his team as well. The Leviathans trying to peek in, see whether or not the Fire Giant has been pulled out. It has been. So now effects played through the fog of war. Zatman should know that it's been pulled, but they don't know how low it is. 50% already.
You will walk straight into the pit, and that calls for Scary D and Scream to go to the back line. Zapman at half will jump in themselves on out. Scary D will dance in front of Zapman, but Baronic will die in front of the Powwow. Scary D dies to Zapman. All during that fight, the Powwow will get 2 different sets of beads in that fight. The Leviathans don't lose out on anybody. They win this 5v4. They take 2, and they could just grab more. If Scream is not careful by the ricochet of Zapman, Shinto is here, and Zapman will dunk down for the kill.
Just an overcommitment from the Solar Scarabs. Scary D goes way too deep in that fight. No follow-up potential, and the Leviathan's able to turn that one around. I think had the Solar Scarabs just stuck inside the Fire Giant pit or tried to shut down Rongyu, who's level 14, by the way, when you've got a double Hunter composition, I think maybe you got enough damage to stop him from walking up on his own. But instead it's a dive-for-dive trade, and the Leviathan's dive doesn't die, whereas the Solar Scarabs does. And now the Leviathans with Fire Giant on all 5 members. It's deja vu, isn't it? They can start working their way across the map.
I mean, we're literally just watching game 1 back here. Same exact pacing early, 3.5, 4,000. The Scarabs can amass up. And then all it takes is one little team fight for Leviathans to turn this one back around here. 23 minutes in. Stewart will push up this left side a little bit further. That obelisk has already been taken now by the Leviathans. They can
It's like the same chart.
pushing up. I mean, it is. It's just that nice little hill that just automatically drops itself back down.
Yeah, what goes up must go down, right? That was one of FDOT's favorite calls back in the day. And well, you don't hope so if you're a Solar Scarabs fan. You do if you're a Leviathans fan, and they are right to hope so now. Gold lead completely mitigated and reversed. 4,000 now favoring the Leviathans, and will only get further out of control as there are 5 towers still standing 23 minutes into this game. Tier 1's foregone conclusion. Solar Scarabs not going to group up on any of those. Tier 2's, though, potentially soft defense. You don't have a standard orthodox mage. Well, I suppose you do, but not a standard build. So the ability to keep these waves out of your Phoenixes, out of your tier 2s, a little bit mitigated, especially considering Scream with Blink would love to use Dragonflight to get into that backline and displace somebody. So every time he has to use one of his abilities on anything else, the Solar Scarabs lose a lot of their team fight potential.
Garrity pulls in Rongyu, but not much more pulls in Yarkor, I should say. Not much follow beyond there. Rongyu has instead gone on to Baronic. The walls have been opened up by Stewart in the backline. The Lightning Storm drops.
Look at Scream.
Right on top for Shinto, but Scream is surrounded by 3, and Zapman will close that kill out. A pull in onto just inbound. Baronic goes down because the Powwow damage was enough to grab him inside that Centaurus. Scary D isolated and dropped as well. That's 3 of the Scarabs down, and make that 4 soon after.
Good
If
kill.
inbound could go down, Shinto finds Stewart, and inbound, the last one alive, will be able to walk out. But Leviathan's not super healthy right now.
Here's the thing about Zeus, and when there's only one god alive on the enemy team, it becomes much easier to siege the Titan. Now you got a chain lightning target. Doesn't have to be the shield. He can hold on to that one inbound. Gonna have to play miraculously here to maintain the base.
He's gonna need to pull somebody in the fountain if that's even possible.
Do it the
for
Panatom, quick.
Shinto. He will pull the Panatom in. That'll take the jungler down to about half. But Leviathans, without these minions, taking a little bit longer before they can kill this Titan off. And Leviathans, one more time, down in the early game, come back in the late to make it a 2-0 sweep.
The reigning world champions prove that a good early game is not all that it takes to beat them. You got to have the follow through immediately afterward, and the Solar Scarabs in both games 1 and 2 did not quite have it, and the champions, cooler heads, prevail. We're able to just stay in there, keep their heads above water, stay afloat, don't get dragged down into that mud battle, and eventually we're able to come out on top. Congratulations to the Leviathans in a pretty convincing 2-0.
I will say, those Scarabs at least having a little bit of fun in that draft to start that out for game
I'm
number 2.
gonna play so much Morgan. I'm gonna do it.
All right, I know which cues I'm gonna be avoiding. When Mifflin is queuing,
I'll see
I'm gonna
all
make
you in
sure, I'm
casuals
gonna
tonight.
make sure to avoid those ones because I don't want Morgan Le Fay jungle in any of my games out here. Some good games here by the Scarabs, but even better performance out of Leviathans. They take the 2-0. We'll take it to the desk, and they'll close out our day.
seems to be a repeat of game number 1 here. In game number 2, the Atlantis Leviathans, they go down early, they buy their time, they team fight better late, and they take the game and the set. I imagine Scarabs players and fans a little bit frustrated in this one. You know, it's one thing that happens in game 1, you go up big, can't capitalize, can't get the game win. I feel like the same exact thing happens a second time here, Trelly. Probably a bit frustrating for it to happen back-to-back times.
Yeah, I think me and Gore were talking, and I looked up and I saw I think it was like 8-1 maybe at that point, and I was like, sure, there's no way that the Leviathans are
so
able
it's
to
your
come back
fault.
from this. And then Gore said, are you trying to cast a curse yourself? And I was like, well, we'll have to see if they're able to pull it off. And they were. I think, honestly, they just the surprising nature of this Morgan Le Fay jungle may have caught them off guard a bit in the early, but besides that, it seemed like once they were able to get online, yeah, now it's 8-3, and it just slowly climbed back into fruition there, and they were able to team fight effectively. I just don't think they care about gold leads, Dave. That's got to be it.
Yeah, which again is very this roster season 7-esque, right? Like that's how this roster a couple years ago operated. I think there's an argument to be made for like who cares, who won the games anyway. I think, of course, if we talk to this team, you prefer not to go down early and have to fight back at a deficit later on in the game. But it felt like different instances of the Leviathans team in game 1 and game 2 were the utility piece for bringing them back into the game. I think Zapman, despite Stewart having an absurd start to this game, ends up 6-2-5. Stewart does. It was like a 5-0 start for that Medusa. Could never leverage that if you're the Scarabs. Zapman was not the recipient of a lot of those deaths from Stewart, if any at all. A lot of that was centered around the mid lane. Zapman helped this Leviathans team get back into the game. I think like all 10,000 damage that Zapman did was later on in this game through the team fights. And so, you know, I think Trelly, I'll go back to it. I think if you're the Leviathans, you're happy you got the set win.
Right.
But I think there's absolutely some stuff to take away where you're thinking, well, maybe let's not let the early game get quite as far away from us next time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if the Scarabs play it differently, maybe that leads too much to come back from that sort of thing. So you're right. Maybe not exactly happy with how the early game went, but I think they probably knew deep down, as long as we're able to get Shinto online, he still was able to do top damage despite being dead
Right,
more
like 2
often
and 6 or whatever.
Yeah, more often than not in that gameplay. So I'm sure that, you know, maybe just some little things they had to tweak here and there, but they were able to get to that late game portion of the game where their comp really shined.
Well, Trelly, look, when you're at a deficit, when you need your team to come back into the game, you need a rock-solid solo laner to get you back into the team fights, and that's what the Leviathans have, and that's what I have. Standing by with me for the post-game interview, Yarkor is with me. First and foremost, congrats on the set win, Yark. Talk to me a little bit about what happens in the early game this set. Both games felt like you guys fell behind 2,000-3,000 gold, but both games you're able to come back in and win. Did you guys just realize that later on in the game your team fight would be better? Were you ever worried at the way those games were going?
I think you say it, but I don't think I will agree with you that we are happy with this victory at the end of the day, because I think it was more like they don't want it to, I don't know, to focus and win.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure they just make a lot of mistakes around the fights. I remember in the game 1, Bastet dying, and we get gold and that kill for free.
Right.
And then in the last game, they tried to pull fire and lose the fight. I don't know. It was a really weird game by us and by them too. But we came on top.
Hey, you get the win.
Yeah.
You can only be so upset with a win, right? Zoom out a little bit from beyond this set, because I agree the set a bit unique. The solo lane meta has been really fun to follow so far here in Season 9. Saw a lot of assassins for a little while. For you, it's sort of stabilized back into like Cthulhu and Artio, those two over the last few games for you. Do you think you stand alone in that, or is that just sort of where the solo lane meta's at right now? Artio, Cthulhu, those styles of tanks are back.
Yeah, I think right now Cthulhu is probably the best solo laner in the game.
Yep.
I think the assassins are really good too. I'm always down to play Klina or Kama if I can. But I'm always I always gonna play what is better for my team, what my team feel more comfortable too. So I don't really mind to just play whatever. I think right now is in a real spot when you can even play a good warrior too. It's not only gonna be a guardian. So
yeah, I don't think bans are going to allow you or many other solo laners to play Kleedna, Kamazats, anything like that anytime soon. It was a good set win for you guys nonetheless. Thanks for your time.
Yep, thank you.
So the Atlantis Leviathans move their way back up the standings a little bit further here. And you know, it's interesting, Troy. I want to echo what Yark says there. it's just like a weird set, right? Like the early game commanded by the Scarabs, and then what, right? It just wasn't quite there down the stretch in a couple of the games here for the Solar Scarabs. Unfortunate 0-2 loss for them. But a fun and exciting way to start this week in the SPL. 2 matches down. We have got 5 matches still to go. Don't worry, I was not actually counting. That was just me buying some time. 5 matches still to go later on this weekend in the SPL. A couple matchups on Saturday, and then 3 matchups, of course, on Sunday. We start off our day tomorrow with the SPL match of the week. The Valhalla Valkyries up against the Jade Dragons, and end the day tomorrow with the Camelot Kings versus the Tartarus Titans. Now, Trelly, it's the match of the week tomorrow, the Valkyries versus the Jade Dragons, prior to our triple header on Sunday, because the mid lane brothers going up against one another. Now, I think there is a lot to dissect there, play styles, god pools, mentality maybe being similar. But I think going into that matchup, Pagan probably a little bit better equipped with the team around him to end up taking the set win.
Yeah, it would be very poetic if Benny Q's first win in the SPL was against his brother, but I'm sure I'm sure Pagan's not ready to hand that one over. As you mentioned, the Jade Dragons are feeling a little bit good right now, so I can't imagine that they're too nervous, but they want to make sure they get this win. As you said, match of the week, so going against your brother probably never easy.
No.
Yeah, you can't really prepare for that, right? You can't say like, hey. It's just you got to treat it as another match, and as you mentioned, they both do have these diverse picks, so we could see some action flying in that mid lane. But I'm expecting to see some sort of off-brand picks, just seeing what both of these teams are going to bring to the table.
The family group chat popping off prior to their matchup tomorrow. Valhalla Valkyries look to grab their first set win of the phase. Jade Dragons hoping to match the Atlantis Leviathans and improve to 3-2. The Jade Dragons have been a unique team to watch as well, Trelly. A couple of wins over teams you expect them to, a couple losses against teams you might not expect them to lose against, though. It's the Titans and the Kings. Who's beating the Kings right now? I'm not sure anyone. A quick day here in the SPL, though, Trelly. I think lots to take away, lots to look forward to here moving forward. I am so looking forward to that Kings versus Titans set tomorrow as well, because I think we're going to learn a lot. Can the Camelot Kings lose? Can the Tartarus Titans take down teams? How about going into that second set? You have any favorites?
I mean, it really just depends, because I think the Kings are looking very solid right now, as you mentioned, but it's just what Tartarus Titans team is going to come to the table. We'll have to see.
Yep, and that all starts tomorrow. Remember, SEC at 11 a.m., and then after that, the SPL will kick off at 1. The Valhalla Valkyries versus the Jade Dragons first. Camelot Kings versus the Tartarus Titans after. On behalf of myself, Trey, all the other casters, everyone back in production, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow.